welcome to The Straight Stitch, a podcast about sewing and other fiber arts. This is episode 26, and my name is Janet Szabo. I'll be your guide as we explore all things sewing. It's the second full week of March, actually the end of the second full week of March, and spring is slowly but surely coming to western Montana. We're supposed to be up in the mid-50s for the next couple of days, which should go a long way toward helping the snow to melt. I was out in our greenhouse for a little bit this morning. We have a fairly sizable greenhouse. I would say it's probably about maybe 14 feet wide by 24 feet long. It has cedar benches in it that were built by my husband. He also built the greenhouse, although it came as a kit from a local nursery. And it has a double layer of plastic with air blown between it, and that's what provides the insulation. So this time of year, even if it's still a little bit chilly out, it's nice and toasty inside the greenhouse. We usually start our own plants in there for our garden, but I'm also the chairman of a big fundraising plant sale that happens the third weekend in May, and we grow a lot of the inventory in that same greenhouse. So I need to get everything cleared out and cleaned up and get the trays and the pots all set out and start filling them with potting soil and getting some seeds planted. Unfortunately, this is one of two times of the year, the fall being the other time, when sewing gets shoved to the back burner for a little bit. Not forever, just for a few weeks, because I'm trying to get all of these other spring projects underway. I did finish the baby quilt that I've been working on, and I mailed that to my cousin at the beginning of the week. I started making a Portsmouth tote bag. The pattern is by Clumhouse, and I'll put the link in the show notes. If you listened to last week's episode on bag making, I talked about how much I like the Clumhouse patterns, and the Portsmouth tote looks like it's going to be a really useful tote. Unfortunately, just as I started working on it, the tension assembly on my Necky BV Industrial, which I have in a treadle base here in my office, the tension assembly broke. So I ordered some replacement parts. That machine shares a lot of characteristics with the Singer 3115, and I'm pretty sure that the tension piece that I need to replace from a 3115 will work in that machine. I usually order my parts from Sewing Parts Online. You can go to their website and enter your machine by the model number, and all of the parts that fit that machine that they have in stock will pop up. So it's a good way to search for replacement parts if you need them. So I'm in that spot where I can't make much progress with my sewing projects, and they need to get set aside for a bit anyway, so you may not be hearing about any current projects in the next couple of episodes. But today, on today's episode, I want to bring you an interview with Kate McIvor, who is the owner of the Confident Stitch in Missoula, Montana, which is about 2 hours south of me here. The other noteworthy thing that happened this week is that I bought a car. I bought a new car, actually a new SUV. I have been driving a 2014 BMW diesel station wagon, which I absolutely love. That's probably the car that I have most adored in my adult life, but it just turned over 150,000 miles and it has had some issues. And my husband is my BMW mechanic, and patient miracle worker though he is, I know he cannot keep that car running forever. So I have been reluctantly looking for a new car, and this week I decided on a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Originally I thought I might get the third row seat version, but I think that's going to be way too big for me to drive when I go to Seattle. Driving around tight spots in that city in that big a vehicle might be a little problematic, so I went with the two-row version, the Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, and I drove it to Missoula on Wednesday. I had picked it up on Tuesday, brought it home, drove it to Missoula on Wednesday, and I'm really pleased with it. The only thing that I wish it did was get 40 miles to the gallon like my BMW, but otherwise it's a great vehicle. So as I said, Missoula is about 2 hours south of here. It's a lovely drive when the weather's nice, and I made a kind of a business trip out of this trip to Missoula. I also had to go to a store called A Clean Stitch, which is the Bernina dealer in Missoula, and that's where I have taught serger mastery classes. So I stopped in there with my calendar to talk to one of the owners about getting some additional classes on the schedule for the next couple of months so that they can get them on the website and start advertising them. So I did that first and made a few other stops while I was down there. And then I ended up at the Confident Stitch at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon to meet with Kate. And I think that you will really enjoy this interview. Kate's a lovely lady. She's probably about my age. We both have kids about the same age. And she opened this store in Missoula in 2017, and I have enjoyed going there ever since. It's a combination modern quilt fabric and apparel fabric store. She carries a huge selection of printed patterns. She's got bag making supplies. She's got 2 gigantic walls of notions. It's a lovely place to go hang out for an hour or two and do some fabric shopping. And I knew that when I started this podcast, she was one of the people that I wanted to interview. I always like to find out what makes a business successful, and Kate wasn't shy about sharing some of her secrets for success. So you'll hear about that in the podcast. And without further ado, we'll get right into it. I do want to note that this is the first time I've used my recording setup in a mobile situation, so the audio quality isn't quite as good as it is when I record here at home, but I think you'll still be able to hear and understand both of us. I am here with Kate McIvor, who is the owner of the Confident Stitch in Missoula, Montana, and we're going to hear all about Kate's business today. So welcome to the podcast, Kate.
Thanks, Janet.
Kate, I would like to start out by hearing about your journey to becoming a fabric store owner. So why don't you start wherever you want and tell me how you ended up here.
Okay. So I always loved sewing. I started when I was really little, sewing on my grandma's treadle machine. And then I had a career in public health and had my children and still loved sewing, but I didn't feel super emotional about it or mission driven. And then about probably 15 years ago, I discovered that you can alter paper patterns to make them fit. And I was hooked. I was so excited. I'm super tall, super busty, and it's really hard for me to find things in the store that fit, let alone knowing how to sew it for myself to make it fit, even though I know how to lengthen arms, but there's a lot more to it. And so I learned the Palmer-Pletch method of fitting and just really was happily overwhelmed with the power of that, the power that everyone has to alter the pattern to make it fit, and there's no shame in having to alter the pattern to make it fit, and no shame in going into a dressing room and having things not fit you. It wasn't made for you. And the person who sewed those pieces of fabric together had never seen you before. So that just was so powerful to me that I wanted to be able to help other people do it as well. I also love modern quilt fabrics. I love Kate Fassett. I love all the modern prints, and I love quilting as well. And there really wasn't anyone in Missoula selling modern quilt fabrics. And I heard from a lot of people from all over the country, or I have since I opened, that they don't have access to modern quilt fabrics where they live. So I feel like I'm filling a niche with the modern quilt prints.
I love that you said the sense of power that you got when you discovered that you could fit and make clothing that fits you. I have exactly the same problems that you do. I'm taller than average. I'm bustier than average.
Right.
And I like to tell people in my fitting classes that they aren't figure flaws, they are figure features.
Right. Exactly. There's no flaw.
No.
It's a body.
It is.
And it's inches. There shouldn't be any shame. And we have so much shame.
Yes.
In the modern world.
So how long has the store been here?
8 years.
8 years. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been really fun.
I bet. So you draw from not only locally, but you also have clientele all over the country. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. So our whole store is on the web, and we have a full e-commerce website. And so people, I think most of our customers are from California, Texas, and New York, kind of the states where the most people live in the United States, but we have people from all 50 states.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I've ordered from you. You've shipped to Kalispell, and I really
Yes.
appreciate that. So your store is about half and half quilt fabric and garment fabric, and would you say your clientele is also about half and half?
Yes, our clientele is half and half as well.
Okay. And you do a program called We Quilt This City. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we send out a stack of 5.5-inch squares of quilting cotton every quarter, and we curate the stack. It's seasonal. It's not all from one line. We pull from all different lines and put together a palette of colors that is really unique and goes with the season. I also design a small project from scratch and make a video showing how to make the small project, and then we also write detailed instructions with photographs for the small project. So you get your 5.5-inch squares, your beautiful instructions, and access to the video. And the small project you can basically make with just the 5-inch squares, 5.5-inch squares. You need maybe a couple things from your stash, but it's designed to be made with 5.5-inch squares. And then we also pick a modern quilt pattern that would look good with those colors, and make that and take photos and write a blog post with some hints and tips for making that quilt. And we make a kit for the quilt as well, and you get a discount on everything. If you want yardage or the small project special kit or the quilt kit, you get a discount. So it's pretty cool.
And this is the second year you've done this?
No, I think it's the 4th or 5th
Oh
year.
my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, it's been so every quarter for quite a few years.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really fun.
That sounds like it.
Yeah, and it's a great way to connect with our customers.
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned your website, because your website is a great resource, I think. You've got great photographs. You've got lots of information.
Yeah.
To support what people are what projects they're working on.
Yeah, and we have links to how-to videos, and we have a blog where sometimes we get philosophical in our blog, and sometimes we give tips and tricks for doing a project.
That's what blogs are for. They're for being philosophical.
Yeah.
Your store is just laid out so beautifully. You have garment fabrics, you have quilting fabrics, you've got bag making supplies.
Mm-hmm.
You have a huge range of patterns.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, kind of unusual. Is there a reason why you decided to carry so many paper patterns?
Well, I'm I mostly just wanted to carry the good independent pattern companies. And as the number of good independent pattern companies grow, I feel like I want to carry new ones.
That's been wonderful.
Yeah, so I really try to curate. I have in the past carried a couple that I ended up not thinking that they were that well drafted, but customers can feel assured that any pattern that we carry is well drafted and the instructions are really good.
What is your drafting background or fitting background?
Well, I've been trained as a Palmer Pletch. I'm a certified instructor for Palmer Pletch, and I've taken a lot of classes from them. I mean, I've gone to Portland, Oregon, and taken weeks and weeks of classes from them, hands-on classes for fitting bodices and jackets and pants.
And you told me that you have a fitting class coming up at the end of this month.
I do. It's going to be a demo class, and we're going to start doing them every month, and the first one will be on lengthening and shortening.
Awesome.
Yeah. The things that almost all of us have to do.
Right?
Yeah.
It's nice to see the expansion of sizes in a lot of the indie pattern companies now.
Right.
Carrying the larger size range. And it's not only larger sizes, but smaller sizes.
Right.
I think because people who are petite or short have as much trouble as people who are taller.
It's true. Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Can you also talk about your swatch program? You have a swatch program called Garment for You?
Yes. So because it's so hard, even with great photos, we have a professional photographer, we take a ton of pictures of our fabrics, but when you can't quite touch them, it's hard to know what the fabric would be good for, what project it would work well for, and also what it feels like if you're going to want it against your skin, and exactly what color it is. So in addition to We Quilt This City, we have a very different yet similar program for garment makers that's called Garment for You, as you mentioned. And with Garment for You, you get every quarter a card with 10 fabrics. Actually, they're glued to it, and you can lift the fabric and see what needle to use, how to wash it, anything to watch out for, any tips and tricks for sewing with it, and we have a suggested pattern, which also helps you picture what to do with it. And Garment for You, you can go for warm tones or cool tones.
I love that.
Depending on what you want to wear. I did a lot of research by subscribing to swatch services that other stores have, and replicating what I liked and not what I didn't like. And one thing I didn't like was it seemed that some stores just send you like, these are the 20 fabrics we just received. They might not be good for this season, they might not go with each other, you might not look good in them, but here you go. And so we really work hard to curate each collection to complement people with different skin tones. And also, each collection, each 10 fabric collection can act as a capsule wardrobe. So we pick patterns and fabrics so that you could, if you had all the time in the world, you could theoretically make yourself a capsule wardrobe with those 10 fabrics and the 10 patterns that we're suggesting. Plus, we make a video for a separate video for each one, showing the fabric, how it drapes, what it looks like, kind of big, because it is just a 1.5 by 3 inch swatch. So you kind of see it larger, and then we also pair it with other fabrics and show you what other colorways we have of the same fabric. So if you love the feel of a knit and you'd like to try it in a different color, we show you those colors.
It's awesome. I have watched the videos. I love the way you kind of showcase the potential of the fabric.
Right. Yeah. And I'm really lucky that Maisie, my colleague, has her own little theater company. So she understands like B-roll and like how to put together a little story.
That's awesome.
And it really, yeah. So we're dialing it in. It's just every time we make a video, we learn something new.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Just like with podcasts.
Yes.
So is there something special about the store that you want to highlight that I haven't hit yet?
Well, I think you have hit it, but it is a really unusual store. There's just a handful of us nationwide that have garment fabrics and quilting cottons, and the expertise and the time that we spend with customers, whether it's online or in the store, we really give superb customer service. And I mean, not just me, but my staff. I mean, I am not upfront that much, but my staff does an amazing job, and they know so much and are really willing to hold your hand as much as you want it held, and not hold your hand if you don't want it held.
You and I were talking before we started a little bit about kind of the future of sewing and how we recognize that younger people may not have the time or the money to spend, and yet they're the ones who are concerned about fast fashion and concerned about, overwhelming the landfills with...
Right.
I drive by the thrift store in Kalispell and I see that they just have bales and bales of used clothing.
Right.
That they're sending away.
Right.
Because they can't sell it.
Right. Yeah. So I think that there is awareness and a big desire of younger people to make their own clothes and make their clothes out of natural fibers and nice fabrics. And yeah, as I said, they don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of free time because they're building their careers. But I just see a really bright future for home sewing and the independent pattern companies and garment fabric.
I look at some of the clothing. I still have a coat that I bought when I was in college. Which was 34 years ago. So, right. But it's held up well, and it was made well, and it's going to last. It's
right. Exactly. But things that are made now,
no,
they are not.
Wash them once and they fall apart.
Right.
So,
but one of my daughters, who's in her late 20s, she has a friend, Marin, my daughter lives in Mexico, and her friend is in Mexico as well, and is young and has started a clothing company, and her clothes are amazing. They're 100% linen, and every seam is a French seam.
Oh, wow.
It's just beautiful, and it just makes me so happy. And of course, those clothes are much more expensive. A pair of pants is $300.
Right.
But if you, on the inside, it is all French seams. Even the curved pockets are French seams. And yeah, I can't resist things like that.
Yeah.
That's just amazing. And I'm hopeful, seeing Bridget's work, I am hopeful that we're going to move back in that direction where people don't have to have a ton of clothes. If you have a few well-made things, you don't need...
Right.
You don't need to follow the 6-week trend.
Right. And we could probably go on and on about devaluing women's work in general.
Right, exactly. Right, yeah. So yeah, we do get not a lot, but a handful of men in the store who say, "Oh, I want to save money, so I want to make a jacket."
Isn't that interesting?
And how hard could it be?
How hard could it be?
Yeah. And 8 weeks later, they're like, "This is really hard."
Right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's also really powerful for women and men to make their own clothes, because then they realize that we are not paying enough
Right.
for the work that goes in to making something.
Right. I'll get people who ask me, "Will you hem my pants?" And I'll say, "Sure, $25 minimum."
Yeah.
And they're like, "But I didn't pay that much for the pants." And I say, "Well."
Right. The person who made those pants did not
Right.
make a living wage.
Right. Yeah.
And so.
And
yeah.
quilting is very much the same.
Right. Right. I mean, you can buy a cheap blanket.
Right.
But, yeah, something that is a piece of art like quilters can make.
Right.
Is worth it so much more.
Yes.
And, when you get to pick the colors that you want, and just feels, I love the sense of pride when my points match. It just makes me so happy. And I love watching people, get better and better and show off their work. And it's such a beautiful art. And I think it's just such a source of happiness.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what kinds of things would you, if you had all the time in the world,
Mm-hmm.
what kinds of things would you like the store to maybe branch out into?
Well, I'm pretty happy with the fabrics that we're carrying. I would love to carry more of everything. It's surprising that you have to put so many limits on yourself as a fabric store owner as you do when you're shopping for fabric. But I would like to branch into things like Liberty of London cottons. I'm thinking about boutiques for quilting, but I know that I would have to have a lot of them. And boutiques are available in a lot of quilt shops.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm really pretty happy with where we are right now. I would just love more space and more fabric, just like all of us.
Right. But I think it's a testament to the fact that you are here. You survived the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. Well, we thrived. The pandemic was very good to us because...
Talk about that.
Well, most quilt shops and many garment fabric stores didn't have websites before the pandemic. They just depended on their local
foot traffic.
Right. And I started the website the minute I opened the store. And our website, as you mentioned, is very sophisticated,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked very hard on it and put a lot of money into it. And so, yeah, we, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when a lot of stores nationwide were closed, we got so many orders. As soon as the pandemic started and the Montana governor said everyone had to close down, I told my staff, I think you're going to have to go home. I think maybe part-time, we'll just have to see. Within 2 days, I was flipping out, trying to fill the orders myself.
Oh.
We had so many orders from
Wow.
all over the country. So I was very, very well positioned to do well in the pandemic.
Good.
Yeah, so that was really nice. Yeah. Lucky, and the pandemic was not nice.
Well, luck favors the prepared.
Yeah, I was very prepared. I was over-prepared, and it paid off, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you've probably kept a lot of those same customers.
Yeah.
As a result.
Yeah, it was really nice because we do send things super fast.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the day that you order, we have it in the mail, priority mail. And so I think people were pleasantly surprised.
Good.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Have I missed anything?
No.
What do you sew personally?
Oh, what do I sew personally? Oh, I make my clothes for sure, and
you model them because
I've
seen
yes.
you wearing them. Yes.
I make pretty much all of my own clothes except for the $300 pants I just bought with French seams, which I love, and then every quarter I work really hard on the small project. So designing it, practicing with it, making a video about it, and writing the instructions is a lot.
It is.
So that takes up a lot of my time. I actually don't have quilts on top of all of my beds at home, and I really would like to make quilts that I can put on top of my beds, and just need a little tiny bit more free time. I mean, they do say that if you open a fabric store, you'll never have time to sew again.
Right.
Which I swore would never happen to me, but if I am not careful, it will happen to me.
Yes. Or if you start a podcast, you will never have time to sew again.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
So, what kind of sewing machine do you sew on? Do you mind if I ask?
I have a Bernina at home.
Okay.
Yep. I have a 710. I worked at a Bernina shop in Helena for a little while. And I also have a Baby Lock Jane, which is a straight stitch machine.
Okay.
That I really like.
Uh-huh.
And I have a couple of Baby Lock sergers.
Okay.
Or a serger and a cover stitch.
Do you like sewing with knits more than wovens, or you like both?
I think I like both equally. Yeah, I think I really do like both equally.
Okay.
There's pluses.
You don't have to choose.
Yeah, there's pluses and minuses for both. You know, I'm equally likely to get frustrated with either of them.
Yes. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell our listeners how they can find you on the internet?
Yes. So we're at theconfidentstitch.com, and we also have a really robust Instagram account at The Confident Stitch.
Awesome. That I did not know. I should follow you on Instagram.
Yes, I've learned that I am really, really good at reels.
Oh, okay.
And I really like making them. So there's a lot of very silly sewing content on Instagram.
But that may be just what people want to see.
Yeah. And I also have just started some walk and talk. So once or twice a week, I talk about some aspect of sewing.
Okay.
While I'm walking to work.
Oh, so you walk to work.
I walk to work every day.
Oh, that's very
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
And about how far is it?
It's about 1.5 miles.
Do you do it in the winter?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because you live in Montana.
I know. Why would it stop me? Yes, I have cleats for the bottom of my shoes.
Right.
And but this winter has been so mild.
It has been very mild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't been very slippery at all.
No. And then you also have a YouTube channel.
Yes, we have a YouTube channel where mostly we're posting our Garment for You and We Quilt This City videos.
Okay.
Maybe someday I will have time to really grow it, but we do have professional videographers and
I have a friend who has a sewing business, and he actually said a couple of months ago that he doesn't have a sewing business anymore as much as he has a media company.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So it does tend to morph in that direction. And then you also have a Facebook group, is that right?
We do. We have
Okay.
a Facebook group. I'm not as good at keeping up with it as I should be.
Okay.
But Instagram is a really good way to connect with us.
Okay.
As is YouTube.
Okay, good. Good. Well, I
Yeah.
will put all those links in the show notes
Yeah.
so that people can find you, and maybe some pictures of the garment for you swatches, because those are very well done.
Yeah, that would be fun. Thank
Okay.
you. And then we also have a really good newsletter.
Okay.
Once a week we send our newsletter, and it's fun and colorful and has the blog, if we have a new blog post or new fabric, or tonight we're having a service project. That's another thing.
Oh,
that we
talk
do.
about that.
We do a lot of service projects.
Uh-huh.
And we were contacted by a group who helps homeless people
Uh-huh.
through the city, I think, and they're having a kind of an expo at the library with lots of vendors, so mental health, but also like people who will cut your hair, and
Okay.
a dental exam,
Uh-huh.
and so lots of services for homeless people. And they asked if we wanted to donate anything, so we thought about it, and we're going to donate sewing kits, but that are super specialized. I think like just your Joe average sewing kit might not be that helpful to a homeless person, so we I'm not going to remember everything, but there are pins and hand sewing needles and some really strong top stitching thread, but also some finer thread, some small scissors, a stick-on patch. Like, I think a lot of homeless people don't have access to irons.
Right, right.
You know, so some stick-on patch material.
Uh-huh.
Lots of safety pins.
Right.
for-
Who doesn't need safety pins?
I know. Lots of safety pins, and also just, we have old pieces of denim, like little remnants of denim.
Right.
So we cut that up into kind of patch size material so that people could sew those on. And then also some paracord to tie if you just need to tie something up.
Right, right.
And so we are going to have a little volunteer get together tonight.
Oh, wow.
For people to kind of put the pin, we're putting the pins on pieces of felt, which also could help. So we're putting together all the boxes tonight and maybe next week, and so we'll donate them to that expo at the library. And in the past, we've done things like using old, it's like surgical drape that was never used. So in the hospital, because everything has to be so clean, there are surgical drapes that never get used, but they were maybe going to be used. So they were, and then they can't be used. So like they might put 4 pieces of surgical drape in the operating room, use 2 of them, the other 2 were never opened, but because they were in the operating room, they can't be used again.
Okay.
So we got a hold of a ton of that, and we had so many people here, but we made sleeping bags.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For homeless people. They could use it, and not only, it's not really warm enough to sleep outside, but like if you're sleeping at the homeless shelter and you just want your own clean thing to sleep in, and also just when you don't know where you're going to sleep, just having a little something to sleep on is really nice. And the surgical drape is kind of like a paper fabric combo that doesn't rip.
Right.
So that was a fun project. We've also, we also did like a duffel bag, well, not duffel bag, like a big tote bag and a pillowcase for women and children who were at shelter, had run away from home and needed to be at a shelter. So the child could get a really pretty pillowcase for their pillow that's especially theirs. And then there's so often women have to carry all their things in garbage bags because they've left so quickly or they don't have a suitcase. So having a nice big tote bag was really appreciated. So I think we made about 100 of each.
Wow.
And donated them.
Sewists are generous people.
Yeah, it's amazing. Whenever we advertise, come and help with a service project, we get so many people. A few years ago, we tried to have a party, and nobody came.
But if you say it's a service project,
everyone will come. Exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of people we are.
Right. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, good. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, we'll do it again in the future if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I will make sure to put the pertinent links and information in the show notes for this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to Kate talk about her business. It's a very successful business, and I hope she's around for a long time. As always, you can find out more about me and about the podcast by going to my website at www.janetzabo.com or to the podcast website, which is at www.thestraightstitchpodcast.com. That's where all the show notes and links for this week's episode will be. I'd also love it if you left a review or a rating on iTunes. I'm up to quite a few ratings on iTunes, and they're all 5s, which is great. That helps other people find us. I've also got some ratings happening on Spotify, which is exciting. I've gotten email from several of you thanking me for resources and offering helpful suggestions about patterns that I might want to try. So keep the emails coming. It's always fun to hear from you. The podcast is available on iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube, although it's an audio-only file. The podcast does have a YouTube channel, and at some point, if I ever start doing video, that's where the video will go. You'll be the first to know. I'm also working on a few other things behind the scenes, so stay tuned and we'll continue on this journey together. So until the next episode, I hope you have a great week and that you get to go sew something.